So with Jeremy is going to get started, and we'll keep right on schedule. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Jim. Hey, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. How's everybody doing? Awesome. All right, great. All right, so let's get started. So we want to welcome everybody who's a member of the Lake St. Catherine Association and everybody who's interested in the lake. Tonight we have a guest speaker, Hillary Solomon from Poultney-Meadowy. She'll kick us off in a few minutes here. She's going to give you an update on our watershed action plan and also our stormwater master plan. Can everybody hear me okay? Is this loud enough? Okay. A little louder? All right. So we have some special guests this evening we'd like to welcome as well. We have State Senators Brian Collmore, David Weeks, and Terry Williams. Thank you for coming. State Representative McCoy, I think I saw Patty come in. Oh, there she is. Thank you. Thanks for coming. And members of the Wells Select Board, Tammy Holcomb, Don Bruce, and Paul Woodruff. Thanks for coming. I think I saw everybody get checked in already. Thanks for coming. And thank you to the Lake St. Catherine Country Club. We always like having our events here, and they always do a great job for us. So a couple of quick things before we get started. Please silence your cell phones. Yep, I see everybody reaching for their pockets. That's good. Thank you. We'll be going through the presentation pretty quickly because we have a lot to cover. But the presentation and the video that we record tonight will be available on our website if you want to refer back to anything. We're going to ask that you please hold your questions to the end. We're going to have a question and answer session at the end. And after the meeting, what we're going to do is we'll all get up, we'll take a quick breather outside, and we'll get the room set up for dinner. And we'll invite everybody back in, get your seat, and then we'll start serving dinner. Okay, so tonight's agenda. This is what we're going to talk about. We have to go over our 2023 minutes, get those approved. Hillary's going to come up and give her presentation. Then we'll continue into water quality. We'll talk about AAS prevention and control. We'll talk about our outreach and engagement that we've done in the past year. We'll talk about the finances. We'll talk about lake safety, some exciting developments in wildlife for the year. So I'm sure a lot of you are aware of what's going on there. We'll have trustee elections, and we'll have a quick Q&A at the end. So first, a thank you to all our Lake St. Catherine trustees who put in the hard work all year long, working hard for the lake. So thank you to everybody on the board. Let's give them a quick round, all the good work. First thing we'll do is, this is a topic list of what we covered last year. So every year we always go through and we approve the minutes, we call them, from last year. So could I get a motion to approve our minutes from last year? Okay, thank you. And a second? Okay, all in favor? All right, there we go. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to invite up Hillary Solomon. She's from the Poultney-Meadowy Natural Resources Conservation District. She's going to give us an update on our Lake Watershed Action Plan, which is a really exciting project for the lake, and also another great project for the lake, the Stormwater Master Plan. So a little bit about Hillary. She's the district manager for Poultney-Meadowy since 2014. She earned her BS in Natural Sciences from the University of Puget Sound and her master's from the Nicholas School of Environment at Duke University. Her background is in environmental science, and she's responsible for the district program in our area. So, Hillary, welcome. Thank you. Give me a nod when you're ready.
Thank you, everyone. Yeah, it's great to be here tonight. I think we'll go with the next slide. So I'm not going to give much of a background on the Conservation District because I think probably many of you are familiar with the Conservation District, and we don't have a ton of time tonight, and I really want to get through the work that we're doing on the Watershed Action Plan. So I don't know if you remember, but there was a meeting back in July of 2022 at the park, the Wellstown Park. And that was a really good introduction to all of the information and data that goes into sort of the background of the Lake Watershed Action Plan. And the slideshow is still available. on the Lake St. Catherine website. So we're going to be presenting today some of the field work that we're doing and the field results that we're finding. The Watershed Action Plan is a combination of all of the data that exists, then field work, and then we decide, what new data do we need, or what projects or programs would be great to help improve the water quality of the lake. And this is all very inclusive of the community around the lake. So it's great to see so many people here tonight who we can give an update about this project. I tried to do like these little government stamps, so there'll be some updates, they're little red stamps, but these are the tasks that have been completed. So we have done a lot of work with the sort of technical advisors at the state to make sure we're on the right track. We have a local committee that sort of goes through day to day, what's been done, who needs to do what next. We had our initial sort of technical and stakeholder meetings, and that was the initial outreach meeting, was that one at the park, the Wellstown Park. This is an update meeting, and then there'll be another meeting where we ask the community to sort of help us prioritize projects, and then the final document will be completed. The data library is that compilation of all the information that has been collected in the past that we want to make sure we don't forget and that we refer to and keep in mind as we're moving forward. And one of the things that we really wanted to make sure that we looked at was what data or information is missing. So the next slide is going to show you that list of what we thought was missing from the current information. And some of this, there's not a lot of information in the current, a lot of information about forest health in the watershed. There could be better information, and this is a little bit back at Poultney Meadowy, but there could be better information about the status of project development online, where you can see it more easily. I know that Jeremy does a great job with our completed projects and keeping track of those, but we always have projects in the works, and it's probably difficult to find information about those, without calling us. The roads data, both the Poultney and Wells road crews have been working very hard to improve the drainage around their roads, and that data online is not very updated, and it's not very accurate, especially for Wells. And that is something that needs to be corrected at the state level. That doesn't have anything to do with the town of Wells. Then there's a lack of infrastructure mapping around the lake. So storm drains in the village of, for example, Wells, that hasn't been mapped. Water quality monitoring data, we've been collecting it for years. We don't share it very much. I'm actually going to share some of it tonight. But again, we could be better about sharing that. And wetlands. I think there's a lot of information about where wetlands are located, but not much information about whether they're functioning well or they're high quality or sort of how they interface with the lake. So those were all pieces that we wanted. Those are all pieces we wanted to try and address as part of this study, on top of the sort of state mandated pieces, which you'll be seeing on the next slide. All right, so these are the tasks and the field work in their sort of subdivisions. So we look at the current shoreline conditions, the current road conditions, and also all of the cross culverts that come under the roads and drain directly to the lake. We are looking at wetlands and in-lake water conditions. So I'm going to show you some of the things and the ways we're doing this in the next couple of slides. Next slide. So this was a boat ride that we took with the consultant. And this was basically just to visually identify any projects we were not aware of, like this one. We also looked for areas where we thought lake-wise assessments would be helpful, or some of the projects that already, all the project types that we already work on, the St. Catherine Association and Poultney Meadowy. We do a lot of shoreline plantings and different projects like that. So where there's a big stretch of like lawn to lake, side by side houses without much shoreline buffer, we noted all those areas so that we can outreach to those landowners to see if they're interested in any trees or shrubs by the water. So these are the culverts that pass underneath the roads that run around the lake. And for many of them, we actually drew the watershed, or the area that drains through that culvert that runs under the road. And we're looking at whether or not there's any space to actually put a remediation project between where that road drainage comes out and then the lake. So next slide. So this is an example. This is up by that Art and Time studio, and there are a couple of roads that all come together on a corner on Route 30. So there are definitely some places in here where we could put remediation projects if the landowners were willing. And next slide. So this is these are two separate locations on Westlake Road where not very large, small amounts of water drain under the road, but there's space between the road and the lake to put a small remediation practice. So we're trying to identify all of these potential locations, and then the next step would be to reach out to landowners and see if they'd be interested in partnering on a practice. So this task 7 is our meatiest of tasks. We're looking at the streams that drain into the lake. We're looking at the forest areas higher in the watershed. And we're also looking at wetlands here. So we picked the 10 largest wetlands. The orange blobs there are those wetlands, and that's the size of those wetlands. The purple is the area that drains to the wetlands. So we're trying to figure out how much of the water that drains to the lake is treated by a wetland before it gets to the lake. And we're trying to figure out if that wetland is functioning well and it's helping the lake, helping to protect it against flooding, helping to protect it against sediment and nutrients entering the lake, if it's providing good wildlife habitat, if it provides fish habitat. So we're going to each of those wetlands, and we've been to all of those except for 2. And we're looking at the functions of those wetlands. So then we end up filling out big surveys in the field, but we're trying to break it down and make it so it's presentable to everybody. So we end up with a 1-page sort of summary that shows a map of where the wetland's located, has some pictures from it, and then the wetland functions are at the bottom. And so far, we've seen really interesting, dynamic, healthy wetlands. Now, we are not looking at, what wetlands have been lost. We're looking at the 10 largest wetlands. How are they functioning? And so far, they look really good. So we chose several streams to assess, and we're going to be looking at the sort of the width and depth of the stream channel and how it's responding to inputs from the landscape. So as our storms sort of shift over time, we're seeing a lot of thunderstorms right now. We're looking at that channel and making sure that it's has the capacity to carry stream flows, and it's not eroding too much and not contributing too many nutrients to the lake. These graphs are the water quality data that we've collected. This is phosphorus data over the last couple of years. So you can see, for example, that Lake St. Catherine 01 on the left has the highest concentrations of phosphorus in it. But you can also see they're color-coded to match their watershed sizes. So that Lake St. Catherine 01 is a tiny watershed at the top. It's up by the Lily Pond. So even though it has a higher concentration of nutrients, it's a very small input in comparison to Endless Brook, which is the gold, larger watershed. So the tributaries that we decided to walk are the larger tributaries. So the purple, the gold, and the blue, Lake St. Catherine 03. So we'll be walking those this summer and taking measurements and just making sure things look stable. And if we see inputs, sediment, nutrients, we'll try to pinpoint where those are coming from. The other piece that's missing, I think, from the information that was available for this watershed is forest health. And there's been great communication and interaction with the residents who live around the lake, but it's harder to interface with those residents who maybe don't see themselves as being part of the lake watershed because they're higher up in the watershed and maybe don't even understand that their property eventually drains into Lake St. Catherine. So right now we're setting up site visits with folks who live up on Sawmill Hill Road and some of the roads, Endless Brook Road, and going to visit them, look at their forest roads, look at their streams, and just see if there's, any improvements or sort of how things are looking up at the headwaters of the watershed, help with any education outreach. And then some exciting in-lake work is coming this summer, and Jeremy is going to talk about that later, so I'm going to leave that for Jeremy, but some pretty exciting things, and I'm guessing that it will be, there'll be some ability to participate in those events or sort of see the results pretty quickly after they happen. Okay, so those are the steps that have been completed, the ones that are in progress, and these are still to be done. So I'm assuming there'll be a meeting this fall. Similar to some of our other projects, we'll get input on which of the projects that have been identified are the most important to the community, and those are ones that'll move forward into design. Okay, so switching gears a little bit. There's another project that we've been working on for the last couple of years at the same time as the Lake Watershed Action Plan, and that's a project development grant. So end of 2018, we had the Stormwater Master Plan, which identified 50 or so projects. The community came together, voted on 6. Those went to design. Those have since been installed. And then last year, another group came together, voted on the next 10 that they wanted to see implemented. Those are in design right now. And I'm going to give you a little update on those. Oh, these are the ones that were installed, the 6 that were installed over the last couple of years. So 5 of those were infiltration projects, helping to slow and infiltrate stormwater. One of them was an erosion control project. It was a ditch that received water from across Route 30 and was really eroded. So that's stabilized now. Okay, so that map shows all of the original projects that were identified in the Stormwater Master Plan back in 2018. 6 of those are completed. Some of those listed are road projects, and the towns have actually completed almost all of those projects. And then the ones left, that list are the ones that were selected at the last meeting to be completed this year, to be designed. So the first 6 are just projects that are in design right now, making good progress. The most popular project was the Westlake 1. So we had like a fan club at the meeting for Westlake 1. People were really excited about it. So I'm really excited to see that one move forward, hopefully next summer. And then number 7, we ended up taking that back to the assessment stage. We had 4 different places where drainage had been identified on Channel Drive as being a problem. A lot of water was coming off the steep hill, uphill of the road. And we decided to go back and reassess that whole road, try to, see if there was a holistic approach to managing the drainage at that location. So that's in progress right now. And then we bundled all those. There were a bunch of Ferncliff road projects and then Ivy Lane drainage issues. So those all got kind of bundled together, and we're sort of redoing the assessment there and then taking those ones into design, but those might change a little bit. Again, trying to be a little bit holistic about that approach and seeing which landowners want to work with us and which ones may not, may be less interested. So for Westlake 1, I was hoping we'd have a design for tonight, but I don't have one available. But it'll be similar to this one at the end of Ferncliff Road, where it'll be a series of pools and kind of step pools. So I'm looking forward to that one. And I think that is it for my presentation. And I guess I would just say that if anybody has questions about the field work or anything you want us to look at, please get in touch with me at some point, because we're definitely still in the information collecting field work phase. But once we start writing the plan, it's a little harder to get back out and do that work. And I want to make sure we include everything we can. So definitely reach out if you have questions or if you think something needs to be looked at.
Thanks, Hillary. Yeah, so Hillary's doing a lot of great work with her crew around the lake, so it's great to see. All right, so while we're talking about water quality, let's keep going on that topic. So Hillary mentioned LakeWise. This is a program that we'd love everybody to get involved with. It's a DEC program where they work on best management practices for your shoreline to make sure that runoff from storms isn't running into the lake and carrying pollutants and phosphorus into the lake. This is a free program. Hillary's crew works on this for a good part of the summer. If you'd like to sign up, we do have a few spots available, so let us know. And a little bit more about the program. Hey, these folks look familiar. The Tersinas are here. They won the award back in 2022 for their property. So we have 26 award winners who have won the LakeWise Award on the lake. So our long-term goal is to get to 15% of all shoreline properties to have won this award, which will get the lake the Gold LakeWise Award. And not only is the award great to have, but all the work that we put in around the lake is what is actually the reward. So approximately 100 assessments have been done around our lake. We're leading the state in that. We're over 10% of the assessments in the state, which was fantastic to see. And we do have a few spots left, so let us know if you'd like to join that program. So some other water quality stuff we want to talk about, monitoring and testing. So these are some of the things we'll talk about here. So lay monitoring, we've been doing this since pretty much the beginning of this program in Vermont. Bi-weekly, Mary Jo goes out onto the lake and takes water samples from the Little Lake and the Big Lake. We send those off and they get tested. These are some of the things that they test, including water clarity, which is the Secchi disc that they send down to see how far down you can see that. That tells us what our water clarity is. Tests for phosphorus, chlorophyll, caffeine, which obviously would show that we have leaky septics if there was high chlorine. And then we also monitor the lake for cyanobacteria outbreaks, and there's E. coli testing going on at the state park. So what we want to show real quick here are a couple of charts from the DEC that they sent us last year. So our phosphorus trend is what they call significantly improving, which is great. So all the work that we're doing is lowering our phosphorus into the lake. And then what you can also see here is our water clarity is stable to improving. And you can see here that we're hovering around 4 to 5. And actually this, our 2023 reading is the best reading we've had since 1997. And that's important because in 1997, you can see right here, we were hovering around 6. And then there's this big jump right here. So why did that happen? An invasive fish was introduced into the lake called the alewife. And I'll tell you a little bit more about them in a moment, but that made a significant impact on our water quality, our water clarity. So you can see how we were around 6 and we went down to 4 in just 1 year because of the introduction of that invasive species. So this is the alewife. You may have seen these. They look like little bait fish or little minnows. But the Fish and Wildlife discovered them in 1997. They think that they were illegally stocked into the lake. They eat zooplankton, and when they do that, that promotes algae growth, leading to decreased water clarity. So here's a good stat from the report about this. In the 3 years before the introduction, our average was about 6.2 meters. In the 6 years after the introduction, we went down to 4 meters. So you can see how much of an impact they had on our water clarity. We'll talk a little bit more about alewives when we get to the wildlife section about how we're trying to control those. Hillary also mentioned this. These are all the tributaries that lead into the lake, and a lot of these are being monitored. 2 have been monitored since 2019, and 6 total tributaries are being monitored right now by Pulteney-Meadowy and Castleton University. So this is the next generation lake assessment. This is a cool thing that the state is starting to do for lakes. It's a 2-day investigation of a lake watershed. And you can see these are all the tests that they do. We were hoping to have this within the last couple of years, but we keep getting bumped for lakes that have a greater need. But we did learn from the state that 10 random sites around the lake, this part of the testing was done last year, and we'll get some more information about that. And they're going to continue to work on these other things. So eventually we will get a full, what they call next generation lake assessment, and we'll be able to share the data with that when that happens. So Hillary mentioned this as well. This is the sediment testing. So on August 26th, we're going to go out with the DEC and our limnologist, Emily, and we're going to go take a deep core sample of the lake. And what we're going to do, it looks similar to this, and we're going to get really deep, and then we're going to date the sample. So we're going to go back in time and see where the sediment was and what dates they were from. They can do that. And then they're also going to check the diatoms that are in there, which I'll tell you what those are in a second. And this testing will let us know how the lake processed phosphorus in the past, which is very important. So this is what we're going to be testing for, the diatoms. That's what they look like under a microscope. They're algae with silica-based walls. They produce 20 to 30% of the air we breathe. And what they do in the lake, they produce these long chain fatty acids, and then things in the lake eat those. So they're very important. And this is a great indicator of lake health. So we're going to be studying these as part of the sediment test. We also tried for a equipment grant from the Lake Champlain Basin Program. It was about a $10,000 grant. We wanted to get some testing equipment that we could leave in the lake, and then also have a handheld monitor where we could run out to the lake after a storm event to test things. Unfortunately, we didn't get this grant, but we're going to try again next year. So we are looking to increase our water testing for the lake. This is Karen's picture from last year. I think last year, Karen, right? Maybe last year. So this is cool because James, who's a Castleton University student, he's doing a crayfish study that he told us about. And he's going to be looking at crayfish in Lake St. Catherine and how they consume food based on their gender and species. And which is interesting because crayfish are very important indicators of water quality. So you can see this loon found a gigantic, because you know how big loons are, that is a gigantic crayfish. So we'll let you know how that study goes with his work at Castleton University. So now we're going to talk about another important issue for the lake, aquatic invasive species prevention and control. So our boat launch monitoring, so this is what we do from Memorial Day to Labor Day. We cover all the weekends, we cover fishing tournaments, so anytime there's a lot of boats coming into the lake. These are the number of inspections that we do over the past several years. You can see there was a bit of a dip in 23, and that was most likely weather-based. We had, if you remember, lots of rain on weekends, so 2022, we had almost 2,000. So I think, John, how many have we had this year so far? About 700 this year so far. It's also a great educational opportunity to talk to boaters when they're entering the lake about invasive species. And you can learn more about our program on our website there. So this is what the greeters are checking for. They're making sure that these invasive species that are really only a lake or two away from us are not getting into our lake. So we already have milfoil, we have the alewives. So these are some things that we're trying to keep out of the lake, like zebra mussels. They're just up in Bombazine. We don't want those here. This is actually, you've probably seen these in the lake. This is an eastern ellipto mussel, which are really good for the lake because they help filter the water. And so this is the good mussel, and then these are the invasive mussels that are on top of them. These spiny water fleas are in Lake Champlain. Water chestnuts just about everywhere. Asian clams are in Lake Bombazine. So we want to make sure that these don't get in and have an impact like the alewives have had on the lake. So we inspect boats entering and exiting the lake. And for the past several years, John has been in charge of this program. And he's leaving us. He's retiring. So we wanted to say thank you to John for his 8 years of service to the lake. He's done a great job running the greeter program and things here at the our meetings, and he's done a great job, and we're going to miss him, even though he's going to still be involved a little bit, right? Yes, okay. So thank you, John. And one last thing to talk about for this, for as far as prevention goes, there's a program called Invasive Patrollers, and we're going to go out on a paddle on August 3rd. If you're interested, let me know. This is a cool program where we look, we've got underwater viewers that you can take out on your kayaks and look and see. We'll paddle around the boat launch because that's most likely where an invasive species would be introduced into the lake. So that's a paddle that we'll do. We'll look for invasive species, and it's kind of an early warning system to see if we see something that doesn't look quite right. We can report it to the DEC. So that's on August 3rd. If anybody's interested, see me after. Okay, so this is a little bit bigger section. We wanted to talk about our milfoil control program. You've probably heard a lot about this in the news and also online and everything that's going on with milfoil and Priscilla. So We wanted to kind of go through and talk about what milfoil is, what we do. We did put in an application for a new 5-year permit. We'll talk about a study that was just done by the legislature, and also a little bit about the misinformation you may be hearing about milfoil permitting and Percelacore. So I'm sure everybody knows what milfoil is. This is a picture from Little Lake from a couple of years ago. It can grow up to 20 feet in water. It's an invasive species. It has no natural controls. Small fragments can start whole new plants, and this was, again, an invasive species that was introduced into the lake in the early 70s. And we work so hard to control it because it decreases our native plants, it decreases light penetration, it increases sedimentation, nutrient loading. There's just everything that this plant does is bad for the lake. And this is what it looks like. We get a lot of misidentification of what milfoil looks like, so we want to make sure people know what it looks like. So you can see it's this long brown stem with these flowery wheels on them right here. And then here is a picture of, it's a little bit harder to see with the lighting in here, but there's milfoil here in with our native plants. So here's a couple of pictures of some plants. Milfoil gets and even though it doesn't look like it, gets misidentified with Illinois pondweed, which is one of our most prolific native plants around the lake, which is actually good for the lake. We want Illinois pondweed to be growing instead of milfoil. We do have another invasive that you might see in Little Lake and in the channel in the early spring. It's called curly leaf pondweed. And then we've got these other ones that kind of look like milfoil and get misidentified as milfoil. So we've got common bladderwort, coontail, which looks very similar but is much different, and Elodea. So just a quick history on our program. So does anybody remember what that is? Yeah, so it's Hungry Harvey. Yep, from way back in the day, from 1979. So when the milfoil got into the lake in the early 70s, milfoil became a problem because it quickly spread. So in 1979, the association brought Hungry Harvey. And after many, many years of using multiple harvesters around the lake, we determined that it was not providing control and was actually making the milfoil problem worse by spreading it around. And that's not just our experience. The DEC has said that these mechanical harvesting machines can fragment the milfoil. It's also not selective. It cuts anything that it's in its path. So you might have a section of native plants with milfoil in there. If you run that over, the milfoil is going to get cut along with the native plants, and then the milfoil is going to grow faster than the native plants. So eventually it will kill those native plants, and it actually makes more milfoil because it makes a monoculture of the milfoil there because it outcompetes the native plants. And also mechanical harvesting can have an impact on wildlife. It can suck up through the harvesting macroinvertebrates, which are insects and small young of the year fishes, fish fry. So it's not just taking out the milfoil, it's taking everything in the pathway of the harvesting machine. I don't know why that picture didn't load, but that would be showing you a mat. That's one of the other things that the Lakes and Catherine Association tried back in the past. These large mats that you put down and you weight them. And then what it does is it kills everything under the mat. So it kills all the plants. So not just milfoil, but all our native plants. It kills those good mussels that we have in the lake that help filter the water, all the macroinvertebrates that are important for the lake ecosystem. So that's not a really good option, and they didn't work very well when we tried them. Other unsuccessful methods you might have heard for controlling milfoil include milfoil weevils, grass carp, which actually made a mess of some lakes locally, and aeration. So that's all of this. We just wanted to let you know all the things that we've tried in the past, which led to our current program, which is these 5 components. So we reach out with education to let folks know about the spread of milfoil and how to deal with it on your shoreline. We ask folks to volunteer and help clean it up. If you've got it near your shore, if you see it in the lake, get it out. The more we can get out, the better. Our DASH team, you've probably seen them working around the lake. I think they were in Horseshoe Bay the last time I saw them working. This is new this year. They've got these new compressors. They're not gas-based, they're electric, so they're much quieter. So hopefully folks appreciate that they're not making as much noise out there while they're working. We just want to note that unfortunately, the dash guys can't work in the little lake because of the sediment and the shallowness of the lake. Once they start working, they kick up the sediments and then they can't see to work. So that's why we unfortunately can't use it in the little lake. One thing I want to note, our dash team, they're down there, they're picking up the milfoil, but look at all the garbage they also pick up for us. So they're down there, you know, we've got fishing poles. I don't know if is that Steve? Is that your fishing pole, Steve, that you lost the other day? Nets and all kinds of other garbage. They also take those up. So our divers are down there, they're cleaning up the milfoil and they're also cleaning up the lake for us. So I just want to let folks know about that. And then we also do spot treatments with the herbicide Procelicor. We couldn't find any old pictures from the pre-herbicide treatment of the lake. So we wanted to show you an example from Lake Iroquois. For those who were here last year, Pat Swazi from the Federation of Vermont Lakes and Ponds was from Lake Iroquois. And you can see this is an overhead shot of this area of the lake that was treated. And you can see sorry about that. See the major difference of how the lake looks pre and post treatment there. And then all the water quality stuff we've been talking about, that makes a huge difference. We're limiting phosphorus from going into the lake, which is what helps those plants grow, including milfoil. So less phosphorus in the lake leads to less weed and plant growth. So this is an example of a great buffer zone right before the lake. So instead of having your lawn all the way down to the lake where the water can rush in and carry all those sediments and phosphorus and pollutants into the lake, an area like this helps to filter that so that doesn't happen. Our results from last year, based on our surveys, a spot treatment was not needed last year. And these are some of the areas where the DASH team worked. And these are the sections where they pulled the buckets. So they pulled a total of 1,057 buckets. Their buckets are 17.5 gallons each. And you can see we had a plant survey completed by Arrowwood Environmental, and that's on our website. You can see that there. So here's our 2024 control plan. So you can see we've got 7 small spot treatments in red for about 34 acres, and these are the sections here that were treated, some small areas there. We are focusing on our DASH crew and their work. So you can see we've got a lot of areas outlined for them to be working this year. They're not going to get to every area, but they're working as hard and as fast as they can to cover the most dense areas and then working around where they could make an impact and clear all the milfoil out of an area. So the spot treatment occurred on June 4th. The testing, it was undetectable after 2 days. And we just want to let folks know that our milfoil control program is reviewed and approved by the DEC each year. We work with them every year on what we're going to do, and they approve our plans every year. And finally, pitch in. You can help. As I mentioned, if you see milfoil, grab it, get it out of the lake. That's the best thing that you can do as an individual. If you've got milfoil growing near your dock or you see it floating near your shoreline, scoop it out. Get a little net, scoop it out, get it on the shore, and that way it can't go somewhere else to make new plants. So our new 5-year permit. So we just submitted this back in March. We thank the towns of Wells and Poultney for providing a letter of support for that. The application is under review, and we have been told that there most likely will be a public hearing once the draft decision is made on our permit. So we're going to be asking you folks to send in comments, and we'll let you know when that is. And also when the public meeting takes place, we're going to ask if you could join us and be there in person. So you can support us. The DEC will be there, Fish and Wildlife will be there, and even maybe the secretary will be there. So it'll be important to show up there and show our support for this. Okay, so last year we told you about a bill called H31 where they tried to put a moratorium in on herbicide use. That bill passed, but without the moratorium, and it was a study bill. So what was created was members of the Vermont DEC, Fish and Wildlife, Department of Health, 2 legislators and 2 scientists from UVM were tasked to examine previous herbicide use and the permitting statute in Vermont. And so I just want to read you just from the executive summary what their finding was. So the committee summarized the use of aquatic nuisance control pesticides, chemicals other than pesticides, and biological controls and non-chemical controls in Vermont lakes and ponds from 2000 to 2023 to assess their impact on the non-target environment or non-target species. The committee found that the established precautions, standards, internal procedures, and permit conditions outlined in the control statute, which that's listed there, adequately ensures the protection of state waters and are designed to protect fish, reptiles, amphibians, and other aquatic biota. So it's really important that that study committee found that all the work that lake associations and the DEC have done for milfoil control over the years has been safe and effective. However, the author of that original bill put in a new bill and took none of the recommendations from the report and is trying to change the statute. So it didn't get taken up this year. Unfortunately, when he put this bill in H 898 or 598, he ignored all the findings of the commission and came up with his own bill that ignored the findings of the report. Luckily, that bill was not taken up, but he has said he is going to reintroduce it into the next session. So we've got to keep our eye on that. You might have heard, with Lake George and other local lakes with Procelicor, you might have heard things that there's a lot of misinformation going around. So if you have any questions about something you hear, please let us know so we can give you our perspective on that. And because we always employ an evidence-based decision-making when we're making these decisions for the lake. Okay, so some outreach and engagement from the past year. We want to let you know we always update our website. We're always putting updates on Facebook. If you're not into Facebook, that's okay. You can go to our website. All our Facebook posts are there, so you can read those as well. We do our spring and our fall newsletters. We do dockside chats. If you want to chat with somebody from the board, let us know, and we'll head over on our boat and meet you at your dock and have a talk about the lake. So Senator Collimore's here. He hosts a show called Catamount Community Connection on Sunday mornings. He invited Hillary and I on to talk about our programs a couple of weeks ago, and that's on our website if you want to check that out. Senator Collimore's a natural interviewer. He does a great job on his radio show. We did Green Up Vermont Day. This was cool. We had all the roads around the lake had volunteers, so every road around the lake got trash picked up and cleaned up this year, which was great. We also worked with the town of Wells and Poultney to get volunteers outside of the lake. And I think Poultney said that they had over 100 volunteers, and we had about 35 to 40 around the lake, which was fantastic. We'll be at East Poultney Day. It's coming up on August 10th. So stop in and see us there. They'll be at the East Poultney Green. We'll have our tent. That's what it looks like. So stop in and see us. We want to talk to you real quick about Libraries Love Lakes. We worked with Gina Ellis at the Wells Village Library, and we wrote this great grant. She did an awesome job writing this, and her idea was to have 4 events based on the seasons. So winter, spring, summer, fall. And also in the grant, we're creating a Lake St. Catherine mascot, and we're also creating a working watershed model of the lake, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. So we've had 3 events so far. So this was our winter event at the fairgrounds in Wells. We had the giant map, which is this huge 25 by 35 foot map of the watershed of the lake, of the Lake Champlain Basin, which includes Lake St. Catherine. And you can walk on it, and it was a really cool event. Then for our spring event, was at the Wells Lakeside Park. We had Eric Hansen, loon expert, he came and talked about the loons. He actually brought his kayak or his canoe so we could head over to the nest and check out the loons who were still nesting at the time. So we gave a live update at that event, which was cool. Kathleen Guinness talked about birds around the lake. And then this was our event at the Lake St. Catherine State Park. Right in the middle there, this is Jeff Ormsby. He's the new park interpreter at the Nature Center. So he took this bunch of families out onto the lake. The kids did water testing. They brought them back. They did all the water tests, and he told them all about water quality. And we had a great day at the park. So those were all funded as part of this Libraries Love Lakes. Our fall event is going to be at the Wells Park on Little Lake, and the focus of this one is going to be artistic interpretation of nature. All of our other ones have been more scientific based, so this is Gina's going to invite a bunch of local artists to come in and do some paintings and drawings and get folks involved in looking at the beautiful Little Lake during the fall when the leaves are changing. We also hope to have our watershed model, which is going to look, this is a 3D rendering of that. So this model will actually hold water, and we'll be able to show erosion and how the watershed works. So we'll be able to say, put some pollutants up here in the mountains and then spray it to make it rain. And that dye will come down and flow into the lake, and you'll be able to see how it works its way into the lake. So that's going to be really cool. We can't wait to, some local artists in Poultney are working on that with us. And we had a vote, and I think this was probably a no-brainer that everybody voted that it should be a loon mascot for the lake. So Gina is working on a costume for the loon mascot, so that'll be part of this as well. So we hope to debut both of those at the fall event, which will be in October, and we'll let folks know when that is. So everybody remembers, or maybe, I don't know if you know what actually happened to the Welcome to Lake St. Catherine sign. Somebody ran it over September 30th, hit and run. It was a blue 2000 to 2005 RAV4. So if you see one that has all kinds of front end damage, they're the one that did that. We know that because they left some bumper parts behind. So Jeff and Sue King are here. I don't know where they're sitting. Thank you. Every year they take care of the grounds right there. So they're going to continue to do that. But what it looks like is that this intersection will be going from a Y to a T at some point. So that doesn't leave a place for a sign. So this is a very early rendering. We're working with a bunch of people that are donating their time to create this new sign. And the idea is this sign will be at the bottom of North Street, but on the left over from the Butternut Hill property. And we've talked to them, and it sounds like they're going to allow us to put the sign there. So Mike on the board designed this great structure. Martha Poffett, who used to be on the board, she donated 3 beautiful pieces of slate. And Andrew, who designed our patches for the last 2 years, he's going to design the face, and then we're going to work with a local slate company to get that produced. So maybe by the end of the year, we might have that. Yep. All right, so the boat parade. This was a great boat parade. I hope everybody enjoyed this one. Thank you to Karen. Karen's here somewhere over there. Karen, thank you for all the awesome pictures. So we had over 250 votes this year, which was amazing. So here's our most patriotic boats. Here's our funniest. This is pretty good. The dump run. Everybody knows the dump run. Got to do that when you're at camp. And here's Mike with his Barbie boat. Mike back there. Yep. This was great. The Wells Carnival float and the loon float, which was awesome. Dawn and Joel are here somewhere, right? Yep. They did a great job on that. And so a couple of boats won in a couple of different categories. So best overall was the Barbie boat. So thank you to Karen for those pictures. That was awesome. So we're also part of the Federation of Vermont Lakes and Ponds. So Pat Swazi, who was here last year, talked about FOVLAP, how they're a statewide organization that is a representative for lake associations, and they work to protect the lakes and ponds of Vermont. And we're a member, one of the 47 members of the FOVLAP, and 2 board members on the Lake St. Catherine Association are on the board. And we have monthly meetings with the DEC, which keep us informed of what's going on at the state level. So that's a really great partnership that we have there with FOVLAP. And just want to mention, this happened after our last meeting. So we hit our 70th anniversary last year. This was just after our meeting last year. So on August 31st, 1953, the Lake St. Catherine Association was formed. So these are all the signatures of all the original founders of the association. So that's pretty cool. 70 years. Okay, so real quick, we'll talk about finances. So our funding sources are from membership dues. We get grants from the Lake Champlain Basin Program. We get grants from the state of Vermont. And we get allocations from voter approved budget allocations from Wells and Poultney. So our membership, we're working towards 400 members for the year. We're at about 360. So we just sent out reminders, and we're hoping to get to that 400 mark. We do have 15 business sponsors. You can see who those business sponsors are on our website. And this is our collectible patch for the year. So this is the second year we've done the patches. We're going to continue doing them. I think people are enjoying them. We're seeing them on hats and bags, and I got mine that my nice mother-in-law sewed on for me here, so I'm looking good tonight. She made me say that. So here's our membership report. You can see we're at 360, and we're trying to get to 400. And here's our breakdown of our members. And this is our average contribution. So that's just our number of members divided into the amount that we've collected this year. We've got 36 what we'll call new members. So people that haven't been members, weren't members last year. So they could have just taken a year off, but we've got 36 people that weren't members last year. So here's a quick breakdown of our projected income. This is our memberships, donations, grants, and allocations. So you can see that totals about 190. And our expenses, so we've got the DASH team, we've got the spot treatments that we're doing this year, lake surveys, the greeter program, all the grants, and then all the things that we need to run the association. We're at about 196. So we're in a little bit of a deficit this year. Last year we about broke even. So yeah, we're about 6,000 less than our projected income, but that could change based on our membership numbers if we can get up to that 400 mark. So lake safety, we just want to let you know about all the new markers that have been out. So you might have seen there's new markers at Sunken Island. There's also little markers that look like this guy right here that are marking some low areas around the lake. So we're putting more of those out. Mike's putting those out for us. And then we also have been getting great updates from Justin Turner, who presented last year as well. He gives us updates and lets us know how he's doing on the lake, maybe once a month. So here's that new marker. There's 2 of these at Sunken Island. It's not just Mike that puts out the buoys. We've got what we call buoy buddies all around the lake that before Memorial Day, we get the buoys out to make sure that it's safe for when everybody's coming up for the summer. And we've got a map of where all the buoys are on the lake on our website at that page right there. So we want to talk about the new wake boat rule. This went into effect this year. So this blue area here is what they call the wake sports zone. It's 500 feet from shore. So what this does is it makes it so that wake boats, when they're in wake sport mode, need to operate in that area. So that's the new rule from the state. There's also concern about wake boats going from lake to lake, transporting aquatic invasive species because they take in a lot of water to make the wake into their ballast tanks. So if they go into another lake, they're mixing water. So that's what that home lake rule is. So based on those 3 criteria, that's what our wake sport zone is. So 30 lakes in Vermont qualify for a wake sport zone. And we're one of the lakes. But what we want to make sure people understand is just because it's a wake boat doesn't mean it can't go anywhere else. If it's not in wake sport mode, it can act like any other boat. It doesn't change the exception to the 200-foot rule, which is you can only go 5 miles an hour, no wake, 200 feet from another boat, from the shoreline, from somebody in the water. But there is an exception from when you're water skiing where you can take off from your dock. So if you're in a bay, you can take off for water skiing from that area and then also come back, but only straight out and straight back. You can't be zipping around into the bays. But that does not change that rule. So we just want to make people aware of that. The DEC also uploaded this map, and it's in an app called Avenza. So if you're on your phone and you're on the lake, you can pull up this map. And if you've already downloaded it before you went out, so even if you don't have a cellular connection while you're on the lake, the GPS in your phone will show you where you are on this map. So if anybody has any questions about that, we can talk about the new wake boat rule. So let's talk about wildlife. We had some exciting developments in wildlife this year. I'm sure people are aware. We've had some loons visiting us year over year, and their presence has greatly increased on the lake over the last several years. So last year, Dawn and Joel noticed that a loon pair was attempting to nest. They didn't do a very good job. They tried. So what Eric said is, hey, we reached out to him and we said, hey, can we build a nesting platform? So one day in early April, Eric came up. We built this great deluxe accommodations for the loons right here, and we put that out for them. And then what did they do? They didn't care about it, and they made their own nest, which was totally fine. I remember Dawn emailing me and saying, I think they're nesting. I think they're nesting. She sent some video, and Eric said, yep, it looks like they're doing it. And then she got that great picture from her place. You can see they made that little nest, and this was in the channel just past their place. And once we saw that, we ran out and put out these signs that Eric left here last year. So we got those all around to keep a nice little buffer around them. And then after 4 weeks of anticipation, this is an awesome photo from Lynn Dyer. So the day that the chicks were hatched, they made their way out to the big lake, and she just happened to catch them heading out into the big lake. Beautiful photo. And this is a photo from Karen, a recent photo of the baby and one of the parents. You can see it looks like a little poof ball. It's got a big white belly now, if you've seen it on the lake. This is just so exciting that we've had loons on the lake. Eric has always described that they'd have to be urban loons to really do good on our lake, because we have a very developed shoreline. We have a very recreational lake, and which aren't two good things for loons, but they found a place and they made it work, and the baby's thriving. So it's so cool to see them cruising around the lake. They're going just about everywhere now. One other cool thing about the loons is we put this collection tube. So lead tackle and monofilament line is deadly to loons, and you can see it's responsible for 50% of their deaths in Vermont. So we put this tube in there in cooperation with Fish and Wildlife, and also with Eric's group, Vermont Center for Eco Studies. And you can see when he was here in April, we emptied the tube. There was a ton of stuff in there, so it's being used, and that's great. So all that lead is out of people's old tackle boxes that we're getting off the lake, because if they consume that, that's deadly. With all the good news about the loons, the eagles tried to have their babies again this year. They were not successful, but they're still very active around the lake. They were very active in the early spring, but they ended up not having babies this year. It was unfortunate. They did have 3 eagles last year. Let's talk about fish. So Vermont Fish and Wildlife, they stock our fish, rainbow trout and brown trout every year. So they did that on April 10th, 3,000 browns and 1,000 rainbows. These guys love to eat the alewife, so they help to keep the control their levels. And Lake St. Catherine is consistently in the top 3 lakes for fishing tournaments. So you can see as of July 1st, Champlain had 92, we have 9, and Bombazine had 10. So a lot of fishing tournaments happen on the lake. You might have heard about the Salisbury hatchery. So this was going to be a big problem. They were thinking about closing the hatchery. This is where all the stocking of browns and rainbows come from. So they talked about closing this this year, which would have caused an issue because rainbow and brown stocking would have ended for several years until they could get this capacity up somewhere else. So fortunately, it looked like there was a bill that was put in, and it's going to be funded for next year to stay open. And part of that bill is also to find, what's the next step for this? Are we going to fix it so it can stay open, or is it we're going to get it somewhere else? Because that would be a big impact if we didn't have trout stocking for several years here at the lake. So this is cool. Junior Warden Weekend is happening this weekend. We were proud and happy to sponsor a teen from Wells who is attending this. So this is a new program from the game wardens where it's up at Lake Bombazine at the conservation camp, and they're going to have so much fun. I think a lot of us would have liked to have gone to this. You get to hang out with the canine unit, s'mores, swimming, fishing, and they're going to learn all about mock crime scenes and things like that. So sounds like a really cool program. So we're going to hear about how that went later this week. We want to tell you about the Master Angler program. So look at that, that's an awesome perch. So this is a program by Fish and Wildlife, and what they did was they took all the native fish species in Vermont, and they determined a trophy size for those. And then if you catch one that's that big, you can submit it to this program, and they keep track of that, and they put a report. This is a image from the cover from this year's report that just came out. And they tell you about all the fish and everything that was caught as part of this program throughout the state over the past year. So if you're out there fishing and you catch one of these fish, submit it and you can represent Lake St. Catherine. It's a fun program. Okay, so we're almost at the end here, John. So we're at the end here. We want to do one quick thing for the trustees. Every year we have a 3-year term of elections for members. So we've got, it's usually a slate of 5, but we only have 3 people that have said that they want to be part of the group for this year. So we will have 2 open spots. So if anybody is interested, John, in being a trustee, please let us know. And that's serious. If you're interested in becoming involved, let us know. So this is the slate of that we have. These are all existing Lake St. Catherine board members. We've got Michael Gay in the back. And we've got Lisa Michich over here. And then we've got Mark Shea, who's over here. So those are our 3 that have put in. So could we get a motion to approve them for the slate for this year? Okay, do we have a second? Okay, and let's have the vote. Everybody approve? Okay, thank you. Thank you for another 3-year term, everybody. And again, if anybody is interested, please let us know.